All right, I got my commentary picture up. Um, I'm going to say that Friday, my sister and I got together, and we were at a nice restaurant along the coast, Whitecaps, if you're local and you know what that means. Or you can look it up on Google Maps. In any case, we were discussing, like, what movie you want to see next, she asked me. And I'm like, oh, I don't see anything really all that good. Black Adam. She was like, Black Adam didn't make any sense. And we looked over and we saw, like, Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And I'm like, oh, gosh, I've been hearing nothing but horrid stuff about Wakanda Forever. And she just smiled and said, well, why don't we go see how bad it is? And I'm like, really? Yeah. So she just plopped it in there. And we went to go see it at a theater we hadn't seen before. They built one near the mall. I think it was Premier Theater. And we went to go see it. And yeah, the opening of Chadwick Boseman or T'Challa was opening. It was really quiet with a nice wind sound. And there was the opening funeral scene was kind of sad, but they also kind of, I don't know, it was just really weird that they busted out into like a big old party. Every last person was wearing pristine clothing that was white in color. And it just seemed very forced, or just very stylized, or whatever it was. It's more like something you'd see out of New Orleans. And I just didn't know what to feel about it. And the way he died, I thought was just kind of pointless, just kind of sad. T'Challa, not Chadwick Boseman. T'Challa died of a unspecified illness. You're like, well, that's Chadwick Boseman died that way, but T'Challa didn't. I mean, we could have CGI'd a battle to where he really got critical injuries. Or, shocker, even recast him. I think we as an audience know that Boseman had passed. But Boseman is an actor who played the part of a character, fictional character. And, we've all seen plays, movies, etc., to where there was a different actor who showed up for the role because the original one was not there. So I didn't see an issue about them recasting. But since, the lack of originality, or maybe, the audience just can't understand this, or maybe we, the casting, feel really bad, the casting crew. Like, well, you just have to put it's a job, it's professional. It's business. Sometimes you have to put aside those feelings. Okay, so you didn't want to do that. Recast T'Challa. Well, alright. What about having a Wakanda-wide call for a new Black Panther? Have each of them, each of the candidates showing, the resourcefulness that they have within themselves to be the new Black Panther. That'd have been too long, you might say. Well, dear heart, this movie was 2 hours and a half, and much of it was bloat. So that's a failed argument even before it gets in the door. Also, I wasn't really feeling the Queen that much. I mean, yeah, she had a lot of dramatic stuff, and she kind of covered the last movie interestingly. She said, I lost my husband, I lost one of my daughters, I lost this person, I lost that person, I lost this and that. Have I not given everything? And my response was, no, you haven't given anything because death happened to someone else. These events happened to someone else. You were not involved in it. So you actually gave zip. Now, you gave a dramatic performance, and the woman, the actress who played the queen, did very, very well, I must say. And we got to see a little more humanity from her. But I did not feel that she was a sad, helpless, widowed queen. You know, she seemed strong. Angela Bassett was her name. She seemed strong, able to carry on her business and perform her duties here and there well. You know, we didn't see much about her being queen as much as we saw about her being a person. And I don't know how to feel. We got to see the council. M'Mbaka was definitely a part of it. He was really the only strong male. I can't remember any males in that movie that did anything outside of M'Mbaka. And he was a supportive male who at the end was kind of dragged along into Jury's "we must do vengeance," and more on that later. And what I felt was that I'm going through it. These T'Challans, they're called Atlanteans, but they were like T'Challa or something like that. They were supposed to be like this civilization undersea that ran into vibranium. And I thought, well, that was unusual. And the scientist girl Jury was like, well, maybe another comet hit the Earth. Another vibranium comet hitting the Earth. Yeah, okay. Sure. But whatever. It fell into the ocean. And this aquatic civilization just happened to be at the exact spot that it needed to be in. Oh, all right. And we were first introduced to them, you know, by them attacking this ship. They had a fascinating. They included in the soundtrack this sonic attack where they were singing a really weird chant, and people were jumping off the boats because of it, just like the ancient Greek myths. And I thought that's kind of weird. I mean, I understand that. I do. Okay, so it was part of the soundtrack. All right. And the people were blue. So I was like, oh. Okay. And this is where the inconsistency starts coming in. That, you know, some of the people were affected by the siren song and some were not. They had time to slip in earbuds, which they happened to have right there. Now, all right. Sure. Boy, as I'm reviewing this movie, my opinion of it gets less and less. I was about ready to say that it's not totally diarrhea, as I thought it was. It would just leave a horrible horrible taste in your body, like you'll need a lot of Pepto behind it. And I would even say, don't see it at the theater, wait till the dollar rental so you can see for yourself how maybe not to really do a kind of movie like this kind of movie. But as it goes on, of course there's spoilers. I don't care. You know, if you're intrigued enough to see the movie, my spoilers will not change your view about it. If you're going to see it, you're going to see it. I mean, you're going into this movie knowing you'll see the Black Panther and you'll see that character in action. So that's hardly a spoiler. So the inconsistencies is that, all right, these T'Challans / Atlanteans jumped out of the water. And some of them are bulletproof sometimes, and then sometimes they're not. Oh, well, okay. So, the two people in the boat got into a helicopter, and someone threw a spear of some sort that managed to pierce the skin of a helicopter at very long range and pull it into the water. Go figure. And then as we progress, the Wakandans got blamed for that. And I don't understand how Wakanda got blamed for an attack. Yeah, they used spears. But where they got hit at, in the middle of the ocean, how would anyone from Wakanda know where that's at? And this boat used a vibranium detector, which was created by a 19-year-old girl who got her mechanical geniuses by working in a garage, working on cars. And I'm not sure how working on like older cars or newer cars translates into creating a machine that can detect a metal that you are not working with. Okay. So there's a lot of moments to where, you know, there's pauses and the characters talks about how T'Challa's death affected them. And it is laborious. Okay, yeah, we get it. You feel bad that T'Challa died. Okay. But yes, we understand you feel bad about T'Challa's passing. Yeah, we get it. Yeah, T'Challa's passing. Very difficult for you. Understood. Oh, we get it. Yes, T'Challa's passing difficult. And there were two characters in the movie. One was the American CIA agent who was in there the first. The actor who played Bilbo Baggins in the Hobbit movies. I thought he had passed, from my understanding. But apparently he's very much alive for this, or maybe they filmed differently. I don't know. I was just surprised that he was in that movie. Largely because he didn't do a damn thing at all. Now, I don't recall anything he contributed to the plot. The female from the Seinfeld, the black hair, Elaine, I think her name was, the character's name was. She played a director who basically ran all over him, you know, in his house, eating his food, giving him orders, you know, basically making this guy a bumbling sidekick to a female character. And neither one of them had any sort of impact on the movie itself. None of their actions were that particularly funny, and there was a couple nice jokes in there that gave me a few chuckles. No, I think they came from characters that had nothing to do with the movie in itself. They just didn't. So you could have taken that character out, and we could have skipped Okoye's a colonizer in chains. Now I've seen everything, which I thought was very racist. And no, it wasn't funny, and it wasn't cute. But I just thought it was tacky. You know, because the Wakandans themselves, their history is not free of colonizing other people either. So they could have cut him out, which would have been fine. And the girl who created this vibranium detector out of her rear, basically, was already in an MIT school at 19. And I'm like, well, did she go through high school? Yeah, and she went from high school directly into MIT. I don't know how in the world that's feasible. And how did she get that level of tech awareness to be able to build all those things that she did? We later find out she built a female version of the Iron Man suit. And I'm like, none of that had an impact on the movie. I mean, yeah, she got dragged along by she got dragged along by the plot because, I don't know. And she constantly did some chipping in, which made a couple nice little chuckles. But, really, she had no role in that movie. Other than to provide, oh, I'm a strong female woman who can fly up in the sky and do dumb stuff and pass out from lack of oxygen. But right before I hit the ground, I magically wake up and fly. There was the plot said so, a lot of magical stuff going on. And one of the things that bothered me about this character is that, this character, not anymore, attacked Wakanda. He managed to throw in these weird-ass water bombs that, caused water to fly everywhere. And in the throne room, and somehow that washed her down this drain. The queen and this scientist girl, I don't think they even said her name. I barely remember it. And the queen, I guess they're in some sort of sewer or drainage. I don't know. I couldn't tell. But I do know that, less than a foot and a half from her, as she was swimming up, there were poles sticking out of, I guess, a wall. And I'm like, did you kind of think maybe that getting on those poles and pulling yourself up or pushing off would have helped you a lot more than just using your one hand to paddle up to the surface, dragging I don't know, it was interesting symbology because the queen, the main character in the movie, one of the main characters in the movie, was dragging an unnecessary character. And she managed to reach the surface, but it was too late. I mean, I guess I don't know how, but she somehow drowned. I mean, there was water everywhere in the throne room. I'm like, well, how did you drown if you managed to make it to the surface with another character? So that didn't make much sense. Neither did her not using the things to the side of her to, use them to negotiate to the surface faster. It's just a thought. I know she's not dumb. The queen is not dumb. So I thought that was all kind of just really a silly way for her to die in the movie. Die like an idiot, which happens far too much in movies today. And then Moore himself, someone had brought up the point that it was very racist in presentation, the way that they did his entry. He popped up in the river, and the queen and jury were next to a campfire, and they made a big deal about going to the site without any kind of weapons or beads or whatnot. But yet, when not Namor, pops up, he's obviously regarded as Hispanic, though Aztecs and Mayans, I don't know. I don't know if they would be considered Latin America, because that didn't exist as a idea at the time. They did not speak Spanish, and they were anything but Hispanic at that time. So I don't know what they were trying to prove there. He did come out of the water, and she said, the queen pointed a spear at him, which I thought they left all weapons behind, but I guess since plot needs the spears to be there all of a sudden, they're there. Alright, so she pointed the spear at him and said, I will ask you one more time, who are you? and he said, I am so and so and such and such. I am no more, not no more. That I want you to go kill a scientist for me because she made a vibranium thing, and I don't want you to tell anybody about us. And I'm kind of like, you're kind of a little too late. You've already attacked a ship, and unless you completely destroyed it, there's evidence of you already. So you're a little late there. And there was no reason for the Queen to be blackmailed into not saying anything about who the heck that was. And the racist part was that it was, quote unquote, an Hispanic crossing the river. And that later on in the movie, the wet bag, they need to dry off his wet back, which was considered a racist jab at Hispanics with that movie. I don't know if they intended it or not, but it gives you something to think about. And as we're going along, the Okoye and jury basically break into a dormitory. I say break in because usually by now, it's 2020, that dormitories usually have some sort of card swipe that only allows students in unless they manage to sneak in when another student let them in. I just, and there was no security there inside the residence halls. It was pretty interesting how they just basically walked into her room. And I thought that her room, or was it a suite, was awfully, what do you call it? Furnished. It had its a mini kitchen off to the side and a bathroom. So I thought, dang, that's some decked up residence halls. Usually that's not a thing. Or maybe I'm just used to going to universities in Mississippi to where they have no concept of anything beyond the 19th century. So, and they basically kidnap her. Jerry says, your future here at MIT is over. Oh, cool. So however she got there, she's going to break the rules of her scholarship. And so she's going to lose credit in that semester. That's cool. And then later on, they try to escape, and somehow the FBI knows about this scientist girl and knows the names of all the people there. So, well, law enforcement is certainly a lot more advanced than much else here in this country, so why not? And then there was a full spy drone or surveillance drone following the three, and female iron person flew up all those thousands of feet, risking, lacking oxygen, and just shot the drone. And she did the I'm passing out, but I'll wake up a few feet before I hit the ground, and I'll be magically able to turn on my jets at the last second. So the drone crashed into the police and killed the policemen that were situated on a bridge in front of the characters that were being pursued. I was like, whatever. Sure. Perfectly going to happen that way without any guidance from anybody. And speaking of bulletproof, there was a scene that these soldiers attacked this outreach center for Wakanda. And I don't know why, but they did. And the Queen's Guard came out, with their little ooh, 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 which I like that music. It kind of sets them up well. But they had spears versus machine guns and assault rifles. And they were opening fire on, I guess, the Queen's Guard. And they were simply spinning their spears around, deflecting bullets. Not very fast, I mind you. And I hate to point this out, but that's nonsensical. Completely nonsensical. I also felt that, how did the soldiers know which place to attack? How was the Queen's Guard aware that the soldiers were going to attack? All of that good stuff. So, this is clearly a movie where you have to literally shut your brain off. Don't question it. Look forward to Black Panther 3, which oddly enough I am. And I'll get into it more. So that was kind of silliness there. And then back to, the fact that this female Iron Man, indirectly killed some cops. So that would be, I think, first-degree manslaughter while trying to resist arrest. And all of this stuff that was against her when she was leaving from Wakanda was magically taken care of by a jury who said, "Don't worry, I took care of all of it." I don't know how. I didn't realize that a monarch from another nation had the authority or whatever to deal with whatever was going on in the U.S. as far as law enforcement goes. I didn't know she had the authority or ability to just kind of expunge someone else's record like that. Sure. Maybe not expunge, but get it taken care of. So, also there was a line that I thought was kind of unusual. That there was a question of how the Queen's Guard had authority in the U.S. And the woman said that we of the Jumhur have authority wherever we're at. And I said, oh, okay, that completely makes sense. Sure. More turning off it. I could, if my sister was listening, she's like, you just have to not question it. But she has some questions herself. And we'll get to that in a little while. I also felt that the character of Not Anymore was not, it didn't meet the comics at all. Namor in the comics is a very white Spock-looking guy, elf-looking, with the eyebrows and the pointed ears and a very slender face. This one, I guess we'll call him the Winged Serpent God, because that was one of his many, 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 many names. That's what my sister calls him. Winged Serpent God. He had wings on his feet, and it was interesting because his family was all bluish from the magical flower that they took. And the story was that his tribe, Winged God's tribe, was suffering from a sickness brought by the, evil white men. Well, no, at the time, Spain wasn't necessarily quote-unquote white, but it was Europeans. So, I don't really know. They did say Europeans about smallpox, which devastated their tribe. So, to help, their tribe survive, the shaman came up with a magical flower which, quote unquote, the gods told him to jump in this big old hole, swing, many hundreds of feet, in the water to pick out this blue flower, which should be easily spotted. And I'm always shocked at how well characters, when they need to, when the plot needs them to, can hold their breath, know how to swim so well that they can get down to the bottom very quickly, and two, resist water pressures. And I know that cave was dark, so I was kind of like, how did that shaman see under the water? I guess that flower was so bright, and it was the only one on that rock too that grew underwater somehow, and he managed to get it completely out of the rock with no issue, and he managed to swim right back the way he came without getting lost, etc., etc., etc. So he took this one and only flower and he ground it up into a paste. How did he know the recipe? I don't know. And he made it like a potion for some of the tribe members to drink, and they did. And they woke up blue, and they had to run into the water. And that's how their civilization started. Maybe about 8 people jumped into the water. 8 now blue people jumped into the water, and somehow, some way, from those 8, built an underwater civilization, hundreds of feet down into the ocean. Don't question it. Just consume next product. And so we're going along, trying to go through what was going on. Oh yeah, Not Anymore wasn't born yet. So they showed the birthing scene of this quote-unquote Not Anymore. And it looked like a very shallow, like all they had to do was stand up in a pool and they'd be at the surface. So it very much looked like these actors were kind of like in a shallow pool, maybe, with some tweed walls in there with them. And this Not Anymore's mom birthed the child underwater. And it came out just, as clean and as nice as could be. She wasn't yelling underwater in pain or nothing like that. It just came out, boop. Not a problem. Don't question it. Just consume product. So that looked ridiculous. And his skin color was normal. Or brownish. He's not Hispanic, but his skin was brown. So I guess he's from the area that was Latin, that is now Latin America. I'll say that, but at the time it was not Latin America. It would have been Central America and northern parts of South America. So there's that, and he had wings on his feet from that, which some people were like, that looks ridiculous, the wings. I'm like, yeah, it is his character though. I think they botched everything else. And they put a lot of, he wore like tons and tons of jewelry on his person. And I'm like, that didn't get in his way of his moving around the water and whatnot. Okay. And he was superhuman, of course, in strength. His spear could pierce, flying I guess the flying helicopters from Wakanda, whatever they were. And his spear could deflect laser bolts. And when he got hit by these big old bolts of plasma or energy, he managed to shrug them off. So I thought that was interesting. He attacked Wakanda by somehow flooding the streets and putting several feet of water in there, enough to where he could get the singers in there again, and they had managed to get some of these pilots to jump off the runway into the water. Well, that's not a big deal. I mean, they can, in that instance, they can rescue them later. And of course, some of the Queen's Guard were running out there, and during this song attack, put earplugs in. Okay, so we have people going around carrying earplugs just in case, I guess. And that one of the Queen's Guard threw a grenade in the middle of the choir there, the deadly choir, and blew it all apart. So I guess killed enough of them to where they were ineffective. At Mubake, did manage to take on a few Atlanteans and help rescue a couple people here and there. And he struck out Edna Moore. You already saw it in the trailers, to where his weapon calmly deflected off of him. Off of not Namor, the winged god. So there was that. And that was the part to where the Queen was standing near a window, I guess out of her throne room, and watching the attack rather than being in a secured location. And female Iron Man was there. And the Queen said, "Go, child, get out of here." But I'm like, why didn't you go with her? Why didn't you both get out of that room? And not anymore flew up to, I guess, the throne room and struck and hit his spear to the window, and it shattered. Or it did a nice crack. And the Queen just sort of stood there, didn't respond. So I'm guessing that she wasn't looking at anything. You know, she was just looking at a wall or a green screen. So I could understand why her reaction wasn't there. Like, well, why didn't you run at that time? Why were you still there? And of course, somehow, this spear thrust into a window by a superhuman was able to resist that. I mean, it cracked. And then he somehow, there was no indication that he was carrying these water bombs or water grenades on there. I didn't see how he could. It was like 5 or 6, maybe 7 of them. And where he got those, I don't know. They weren't on his person. So he threw those water bombs that I guess he pulled out of his rear. And they shattered with such force that they managed to flood the entire throne room for a moment. But instead of the water going right back out, because there was no windows anymore, well, the force of water should have shattered them. Something, that water wasn't going to stay there. Oh yeah, that's right, they got pulled into a drain. The two. I'm still like, they could have survived that? I don't know. That whole scene didn't make sense to me. And the fight scenes between Okoye and the T'Challans was very poorly shot. A lot of shaky cam, very up close scenes. Just not well done. And there was some sort of rivalry between one of the T'Challans and Okoye. Warrior! I'm like, yeah, they put that there. Cool, you could tell. So as we're going along, they had a very short funeral for the Queen Mother. I'm like, I don't know why you didn't have that. A nice funeral for her. And there was a lot of slow-mo in this movie. Lots of slow-mo, which I thought some of it was unnecessary. So, didn't care too much about it. And then, Jury, for some reason, says that, she wants to be the Black Panther. And earlier in the movie, she had visited the T'Challa'n city, and her and Namor basically said that you're going to help me find the scientist and kill her. But I'm like, you have that scientist there. You could kill her right now. What's the issue? They let her go. The scientist and her. Okay, so there went that. Cool. And I found that as Jury was being taken down to visit T'Challa'n City, she managed to successfully negotiate one of those deep depth suits with no problems. I would be thinking that would require some sort of training as they were twisting in and out of tunnels. So I don't know. There was just like, oh, she can do this. Consume product, don't think. Okay, sure. So, while she was down in T'Challa'n City, Not Anymore gave Jury this bracelet from his mother a couple hundred years ago. And he said it was made from the flowers or whatnot. So he had no idea, but he had created, or he gave Jury Wakanda's an ability to produce the flower again. That gave the Black Panther his strength, or her strength now. So she in her Black Panther uniform, went on to face M'Bangu and, basically say, you will help me. Not like I would like, no, just command. Even though M'Baku was like, look, this is going to be war. And I'm like, M'Baku, you guys already are at war. They done kidnapped your sovereign and they promised to come after you anyways. So, the writers didn't know what they had said earlier. They forgot what they wrote earlier, apparently. Okay. That makes no sense that someone like M'Baku would not know that they were already at war with a hostile force. And of course it was like, the T'Challans said, you can't tell anybody about us. Dude, they already knew. The Wakandans already knew. I'm sure they told other people. So, alright. And my sister pointed out something very interesting, that apparently when you take this flower for the first time, this magical flower, for the first time, you travel to the realm of the ancestors. And not every ancestor is a good or worthy person, so I don't even know how this Killmonger managed to be in this vision. But he was still a cruel, vicious guy who asked Yuri, are you going to take care of business or be noble? And I don't know why Killmonger was in there other than to show that he and Not Namor were very much the same, and that Wakanda really hadn't moved that far from the needle. Because earlier in the movie, the Queen Mother rescinded T'Challa's wish to help and reach out to other nations. She now said, we're isolationists. We're violent isolationists. So that was a complete change from, T'Challa's wishes. So that was kind of a finger up the rear for T'Challa's character. dead even. And she said it with the subtlety of a brick on your foot, barefoot. So I thought that was kind of ridiculous. So, with almost no training, they get together and the Wakandans get together and they bring this fake vibranium detector, and they put a sonic trap on it and send it down to the bottom. And it's kind of like, well, wait, if this vibranium detector is not really any source of vibranium, who cares? It's just a detector. And, you know, I find it very hard to believe that, you know, that you haven't been spotted yet. Your country, your nation underwater hasn't been spotted yet by now. And even with this detector, they put on a sonic trap. And for no real reason, you know, they con these whales to be like mounts, the T'Challans, and they rode on these whales. They grabbed the whales that swam underwater, even though that these whales have to get air every now and then. So, all right, sure. And I think that was just, oh, cool, they're riding whales. Cool. Whatever. So, the detector had a sonic trap to it. So, that scattered them away from that. Then they went after this big old ship that the Wakandans had that appeared out of nowhere. Yeah, I get it was invisible, but it was still there, and there was like no disruption of the water of that big old massive ship. And oddly enough, I'll be danged if that ship that they had, it was simply just a floating platform, big old floating platform. It had no side defenses. The Wakandans knew that the T'Challans could climb that, would climb that, did climb that, and there was nothing like little, you know, murder holes on the side of the ship that could stick out, you know, sharp objects that could stab people climbing up that way. Or run a current through them, electricity. Something to slow their ascent. You know, or make it or make it to where the hull could be flexed out to where it would be almost, you know, unscalable. No, it was just stood there nice and flat, and the big idea was to tie bungee cords to the Queen's Guard, and I was just thinking the entire movie, is there not any other military aspects of Wakanda besides the Queen's Guard? Were there no regular military in Wakanda? Or a bunch of spear-chucking women was enough? I get the spears could throw electricity, but wasn't there anything else in Wakanda that could also be like grunts? Or standard armor? Standard army, or, you know, an air force? I really didn't understand the over-reliance on basically spear-chucking women. You know, I get they were bad butts. And I really think they were meant to be like a personal bodyguard and kind of like the Marines in small cases. But for them to be able to take on an entire army at sea was a bit much. Especially by, you know, tying kind of metal bungee cords to where they can climb down the side and fight the encroaching T'Challans. Which I thought, yeah, it was kind of cool until a T'Challan managed to cut the courts. So that was dumb. And I don't really know if the Queen's Guard was able to handle fighting pretty much to a vertical lateral surface as they were. I don't know if they could do that. And female Iron Man, we found out that her suit was waterproof, so she could fly underwater with it. Okay, so she planned it just in case she needed to go underwater. Alright, sure. Okay, it's her suit. Again, she didn't do very much. And Okoye had a power suit of her own, which she used to fly to America to pick up the CIA agent for some reason and call him a chain colonizer. Now I've seen everything. So, Okoye and one of her named lieutenants or something who had a lesbian relationship, they had like a kiss on the head. Thank you, my love. Which could easily be edited out for the more homophobic markets. So I'm just like, hey, guys, just cut the crap. Just cut it out. If you're not going to keep those scenes and you're going to do it for points to make the LGBTQ community happy, don't do it. We're not stupid. We can see cynicism. We can see idiocy. We can see, cynical pandering. Just cut it out. It makes you look stupid, and it's insulting to, the audience in general. We know you're going to cut it out. There's no point. Just focus on telling a good story overall, which you did not do, again, in this movie. So, the T'Challans almost... It was weird. There was a complaint that, the Wakandans are suffering heavy casualties. Like what? There was just like maybe 20 people going there? How are they suffering heavy casualties? So we focus again on the top of this platform / ship. I don't know what it was. It was horrible. It was ridiculous looking. It was a big old chunk of metal with a flat top. And they were almost all being run off of it. Female Iron Man and power suit. I guess they ran out of ammo because they weren't shooting back. They weren't fighting. T'Challans, I guess they were. Were they all superhuman or weren't they? I don't know. But they slowly were running people. They were slowly trying to run off the Wakandans from this platform. And they were taking their sweet time about it. There wasn't any projectiles. And they were slowly creeping towards the Wakandans to give us a false sense of tension there. Now, meanwhile, on a nearby desert beach, which was I don't know how did they plan this? I don't know. But the idea was to capture the winged serpent, dry him out, put him in a super oven. And that kind of worked for a minute. That the heat hit him. And that he couldn't, he didn't respond instantaneously. Would you like a cup of water? So, before he collapsed, he just simply stabbed down into the core of the ship. And they were like, oh, we didn't expect this. And I'm like, yeah, the plot needs to be super strong, so he is. So, the Black Panther at the time, which they started calling her Black Panther, and her reason for becoming the Black Panther was very selfish, according to my sister. And I kind of agree. It was straight up vengeance. It had nothing to do with serving the people. And it was only in the last maybe 15, 20, at best 30 minutes of the movie. So really, the idea of this movie being a Black Panther movie is incorrect. It's not a Black Panther movie. It's about the side characters. Dealing with grief, also dealing with I guess, fish people who have mixed motivations. You'll help us destroy the world, or we'll destroy you. Blackmail is a great way to make allies of that nature that will help you. We'll help you destroy the planet that we live on because you are afraid of being discovered. Yeah. Great motivations. And they had a nice shot of the Queen Mother being on a beach with no security. She was just being on a beach, standing in the water in a nice gown. And Not Anymore popped up. And he said, "You will help us or we'll kill all of you. We'll kill your daughter, everything else." While Drury was still down there visiting. Which I think she was returned, to Wakanda anyways. So there went that. The writing in this movie really is crummy now that, if you give it some thought. It really, really is, because there was a lot of contrivances, inconsistencies. The writers forgot what they said earlier in a hurry. Plot happens too much without any follow-throughs. Why was Yuri returned to Wakanda? Oh, to send them a message? I thought they already did that. I don't know. I just remember it was very confusing as to why they just simply let her go and gave her that bracelet, which would allow them to bring back the Black Panther. I don't think Not Anymore knew that or cared. So after Jury kind of in a disreputable motivation took on the Black Panther, and now I talked about the platform ship. They also her and Not No More had a fight. The ship was cracked up. She couldn't do any projectiles. Not that they needed to. But, I was amazed at how well she could fight with no real formal training. She was assigned to sit out in her lab a lot. And her level of skill, I think maybe, if she was attacked, she could handle like a light thug or somebody like that. She could handle like a single attacker if she got mugged on the streets. But this was a highly skilled combatant who had been skilled for thousands of years, or maybe hundreds of years, according to the movie. And she handled him very, 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 very well. And she somehow, for some reason, the ship being a wreck, and Not No More landed in front of the engines of the ship. And by the way, was doing really great besides being, very dehydrated. He was doing very, very well for himself. It just kind of, to give false tension, they paused and he breathed heavily. But he still kept fighting like, he was on pro, like a champ. Which shows that this was not his first time fighting under these conditions. And that Jury was a fool thinking that simply drying him out would have been the ultimate solution. That was dumb of her, and luckily it didn't cost her life. Now, Not No More did run a spear through the middle of her, through her spine. But she shrugged it off. So, I guess now in modern writing, being stabbed through the center of your body and through the spine does nothing to you. You can just walk on through. Okay. I can hear my sister saying, "Oh, it's just science fiction and all of that." Yeah, it is science fiction, but the suspension of disbelief, there has to be reasonable amounts that, I understand that people can't fly and that those ships don't exist. I'm willing to accept that. But you've kind of blown over my willingness to have disbelief when you stab somebody through the spine and they continue walking. I understand the suit healed her, but I'm just, it didn't affect her at all. I don't think. Did she fall down any? No, she just leaned against the rock and went, So I was like, oh, okay, whatever. So Not Anymore was in front of the engines with a non-functional ship, and she pressed a button, and these flames struck him from behind. And for some reason, the movie showed his quote-unquote wet back now being dry and on fire, which is where the racist charge came from, that, you know, they exposed showing a very wet back now on fire. Very insulting, I guess, to Latinos. Though you could say he wasn't Latino, he was, you know, something Aztec or Mayan. But still, I could understand where they were coming from. Very offensive. So, jury doesn't say she saw Killmonger to anybody. And she got on a ship. I don't know where the ship came from. I think another ship came out of nowhere and picked up both Namor and Jury. And they went back to the ship, you know, moments before they got thrown off the boat or the platform. And Jury said something like, "Wakanda forever, cease! And, you know, you're fighting, the war is over." And Namor said the same thing, or not Namor said the same thing, "Let us go home." And the T'Challans kneeled after Not Namor said that. And no, I'm sorry, they did not bow to the Wakandans. They bowed because their king gave them an order. So that was that. That was a misrepresentation there. Or misinterpretation, not misrepresentation, misinterpretation. And so we're going, so after all that happened, Jury went to Haiti for some reason. I guess to catch up with T'Challa's girlfriend at the time, who kind of went there earlier in the movie, dressed like a complete, you know, sore thumb, and managed to speak T'Challa's tongue to a native who, you know, gave the backstory of how Namor and that, not Namor, and the T'Challans came to be, and I thought that was very strange. I want to know where in the, where in the fried beans and baked beans did they get the ability to speak the T'Challans tongue? You know, they just magically understood that. Okay. If you say so. They do say so, and that's the issue. And I think they restored female Iron Man's car, and we're going to ship it back to her place. Whatever. And dramatically had the police and FBI drop all charges against her. Okay. And if you really took out the female Iron Man out of that movie, that'd have been, I'm saying at least 30 to 45 minutes or more would have been taken out of that movie. And it wouldn't have changed anything. And female Iron Man could have had her own movie. So there is that. So that's why I stated that the movie is horrifically bloated. Now what else? So Jury visits T'Challa's girlfriend in Haiti, and she didn't want to go to the funeral because it was too painful. So the movie ended there, with Jury burning her funeral garbs and crying. And once again, yes, we get it. You're sad that T'Challa is dead, and I'm sad that T'Challa was referenced in such a dumpster fire movie. And then the mid-credit scenes came out, and this was after M'Baka took a ship saying the female Black Panther will not make an appearance right now. And I'm like, well, how did people know? Wait, they're expecting the female Black Panther. Wakanda came out. So didn't the pilot of the ship not tell somebody, hey, the female Black Panther isn't here, but I've got Wakanda and I'm coming into the combat waterfall place where kings fight in the water, in the waterfall, with everyone just standing there. Okay. So Mugaba gets off the ship. His grand say, the female Black Panther will not be making an appearance today. However, I, M'Baka, am here, and I challenge so-and-so for the throne. He said, I challenge for the throne, and they stopped before he gave out the name. Like, well, I'm kind of interested to see how that goes. And of course that was sequel bait. I can safely say I'm sequel baited because I would like to see what they do with the Black Panther, because Jury cannot and must not remain the Black Panther, largely because it is a male role, male ceremonial role, and to take on the Black Panther for vengeance by itself, for its sake, is wrong, because the Black Panther is a protector, not an avenger, and it's also a servant of the people of Wakanda. And since T'Challa wanted, not Bozeman, T'Challa wanted Wakanda to be an outreach to the world, the Black Panther would now, with T'Challa's edict, state that, or T'Challa's wishes, I should say, state that the Black Panther is now a servant for all of mankind, or all those who live on Earth. So what else? So, Jury and T'Challa's girlfriend sat on the beach, and they were talking, and she was like, I have something for you. Oh? And they introduced this love child between T'Challa and the girlfriend. And the kid was like, I am Prince T'Challa. He didn't say the second. Father of, T'Challa's my father and the mother of this. And I'm like, oh, that's going to be fantastic. So a little 5-year-old is going to be able to withstand violent challenges to his throne, because he's not really able to rule, and Jury and the girlfriend are not going to be acceptable queen regents in Wakanda. I'm sorry, it's just not happening. It is just not happening. I don't care. Strong female, There is a lot of traditionalism steeped in that nation. It's in Wakanda. It's not outright stated, but you can if you listen carefully, you can pick it up. Even in this women-only kind of thing. Because the Queen Mother did okay, but there now needs to be a king. And a little child is not a king. The princess is not a king. She's not really able, I don't think she has really the skills and ability to be a queen. She's a great supporting character, great in the lab. And sure as hell, T'Challa's girlfriend, as far as the Wakandan Council and the royalty goes, she could just, ease on down the road. And so, with all that, we focused one last time on the very Aztec city, to where not anymore we're talking about to the gods saying, I did this great thing for you. And I guess his girlfriend came up to Dr. Moore's girlfriend came up, the winged goddess girlfriend came up, and was like, I wanted you to conquer Wakanda, not serve it. And Dr. Moore, you know, occasionally the writers will throw in bits of Wakandian and Tokakian to remind us that they're not like English actors, or that the characters are not American, or whatever the case may be. So they do use those to kind of, add emphasis or to remind us occasionally that these are not people from an English-speaking world. I didn't have much of an issue with that. So Not Anymore basically said that I'm going to misuse Wakanda. We're still going to do our thing, and we're going to pin stuff on Wakanda, and we're going to take advantage of them. And, eventually we will take them out when they least expect it. So I thought that was pretty sneaky of Not No More. And I kind of like that aspect of him. Now, I call him Not No More, though I am willing to accept him. He was presented decently enough in the movie that I am willing to accept him as an aquatic antagonist, as long as we understand that that's Not No More, and that he was a good enough villain. He was acted well enough, though he's simply another villain that they introduced in the movie. And the many other names he went by, and no, he is not a demon, and no, he is not without love because some white priest told him so as he was dying. So, not love. I am a person without love. And clearly he has a love for his people and his nation. Otherwise he wouldn't go through all those lengths that he did. Even though they were ridiculous. So overall, this gets a C-. A meh plus. The movie was very bloated. There was a lot of plot happens because it needs to. So a lot of contrivances, a lot of hey, you just contradicted what you just said earlier. As far as the writing goes, contradictions out the rear. Very poor motivations for both antagonist and protagonist. I mean, almost replacing Jury as villainous because she was like, I'm going to kill everybody because T'Challa was, died, and so on and so forth. I'm like, that's not. I don't even know if that's even Jury. And this movie is not a tribute to Chadwick Boseman, and it's not even a very good tribute to T'Challa because everything T'Challa set up in the first movie was basically obliterated in this one. Even his legacy as Black Panther was obliterated because a vengeful, I guess, late teen, early 20-some-odd took that role. And they were calling her Black Panther, the AI was, to somehow remind us, she's Black Panther now. Yeah, she needed to be a temporary one. I understand she took over the role as Black Panther in the comics. I don't know anything further beyond that. Though, as far as the MCU is concerned, that cannot and should not stand. Otherwise, the Black Panther is pretty much a dead character. Unnecessarily. And, I just really felt that, I get girl power, but this was a little over the top. A young black female, 19 years old, who can able to pull things out of her rear of that nature. Way too much. Antagonist who magically knew about this detector. Hidden civilization of the magnitude and nature of the T'Challa city. Like that, it hasn't been found yet. That's a bit much. We're able to send drones and stuff down hundreds of feet into the water. And a city of that nature unless it's in like the Marina Trench. But even then, you know, some parts of it are mapped. So I just refuse to accept that that's even a viable thing. The Aztec feel was kind of cool, or mine thing was kind of cool, but it was kind of weird for it to be an underwater civilization. It just kind of was weird. And I don't even think it was a pleasant kind of weird. It was just, oh, okay. So overall, um, Jakan City had a big old Mayan-ish pyramid in the middle. It was a very interesting concept, and it was well written. And Jury got to meet all these nice, beautiful wonder sea people who you could tell were holding their breaths underwater. So it wasn't very convincing that these were people who could survive underwater. So I thought that was kind of maybe ridiculous that we didn't see anything like gills or whatnot. And apparently there was air pockets in there to where they could function when they needed to, or some of them were straight human and could wear masks that were put around their face that was water. And I thought that was kind of weird too. They absorb the oxygen out of the water through some sort of osmosis, and I thought that little bit of water around their mouth and nose, effort, transmute, and all the other stuff, that the more effort you put into like a full fighting, that would consume a whole lot of water. And I thought it was interesting that they could speak through that clearly if there was water in there. So I have no idea. They also did a lot of talking underwater. I thought, oh, all right, yeah, they have to show some sort of speech somehow. But not a whole lot of thought, a lot of conveniences. I just felt that this was a very unoriginal movie. I didn't think it carried a whole lot of creative gravitas. I mean, some of the action scenes were interesting, but the fight scenes were not. And there was a lot of, yeah, that can happen. Sure. Oh, yeah, a spear can totally slice through chips made of supposedly vibranium, too. So, I was just thinking that this, yeah, Not No More was very fast in the water. And I was rather surprised that they didn't have much of a Navy or an Air Force to track this No More, even though Jury knew where it was. I was just surprised that Wakanda didn't take any action against them and waited for them. And I thought that when they had said, oh, they've tore up our capital. So, like a few scenes later, we see the capital city in pristine condition like nothing happened. Inconsistencies, and the writers forgot what they just said a few minutes ago. There's a heck of a lot of that in modern writing today. Overall, it's a movie that you should wait until the dollar rental on Redbox, or you stream it for a few bucks. It is not worth going to the theater and seeing a very bloated movie. It felt very bloated. I felt the extended runtime. I was just like, okay, can we get along with this, please? So, my overall recommendation is, I hate to be one of those that's saying, don't expect much from it. It's still bad fourth phase Marvel writing. It's still bad. And if I went in deeper, I would probably join it's burning diarrhea. It's, even though it's not a don't see it kind of level, it is expect to be disappointed, expect to be, feel that runtime, don't expect much from it. Expect a lot of girl power. Expect the usual hideous writing tropes that are very common today in writing, in the superhero genre at the very least, to be very, very present here. So, this was a very much a C movie. Not entirely noteworthy. It doesn't really add to the Marvel Universe in any sense of the word. I like the fact that they introduced an aquatic antagonist, though. I don't really see this version of Not No More really being a part of the Avengers, if the Avengers still exist. I don't see him taking a very prominent positive role in the upcoming Marvel series. He's right now murderous, isolationist. Is not a very fun hero type. And I'm not really feeling where Wakanda is at in a situation of murderous isolationism either. And right now Wakanda is without a leader. And it's fixing to hit some very politically unstable times unless they do some backflipping and some, turn off your brain, we're going to do it this way because a strong female woman, Black Panther, said so. So, I don't know. Just consider that it's not a movie to get excited about, but it's not a movie, that it's just hideous. I enjoyed some of the aspects of it. Some of the parts of the soundtrack are good. And some of the visuals are nice. I also felt like that force field that they had, beating into watery trays for something was kind of weird. They had the sci-fi controls and they turned around and smacked into the watery trays. A sort of force of, technical and traditionalism. And that's something Jerry pointed out is, how does Wakanda face that? And I said it's fairly easy without being pedantic, which Black Panther failed to be. He was very pedantic about his traditionalism. And I found it was ridiculous that the control tower for the force field was parked outside of the entryway of the force field. It wasn't inside the force field, which I thought was completely ridiculous. And that it wasn't under the water. They couldn't detect incoming bodies coming in like that. They couldn't detect big old whales and people swimming underwater after Not Anymore just popped up in front of the Queen and Princess at the same time. Nobody thought to increase security under there, huh? All right, whatever. So this is a movie that if you want to watch it, turn off your brain, turn off your critical thinking, and you might be able to enjoy it. Might. So I don't recommend a theater review, but if you must see this movie that adds absolutely nothing to the Marvel Cinematic Universe overall, but yet another another super female power movie who really achieved nothing on her own. Unmerited, who had unmerited authority and power. Had that. And, excessive bloat. Lots of it. Then you might enjoy yourself. Overall, I wasn't thrilled about this movie. I'm glad I saw it so I could post this review. So basically, C-, meh plus. And see this movie at your own risk. Save your money. Dollar rental special or super cheap stream price is what I would see it at. And that's that's kind of where that movie is at. If you go to the theater and spend a whole bunch of money on it, that's on you. Though at the theater, when we went to see it Friday after Thanksgiving, it was fairly packed. So apparently it's not as hideous as the YouTube reviewers stated, though it's still not a good movie. Alright, thank you very much for watching this very long video, and I hope you enjoyed it. And this was over an hour and a half me talking. Cool. I'll be posting this shortly.